Hello everyone. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Andre and I'm your bookworm. And today we have another book review. We're diving again into fantasy and to a author that we have read before here on the channel, and that author is R.F. Kuang, and we are reviewing Babel. Now, the full name of this book is actually Babel, or The Necessity of Violence, An Arcane History of the Oxford Translators' Revolution, which is a mouthful, and that's why everyone just calls it Babel. If you've never heard of R.F. Kuang, she is famous for a trilogy that she wrote before this one, which is mostly famous by the first book, which is called The Poppy War. I've read and reviewed the 3 books. You can check them out here on the channel. There's thumbnails, there's cards on the top. Just click through, go watch, see if you like their writing style and story-wise as well, and maybe that will incite you into reading other R.F. Kuang works. Otherwise, if you're here for Babel, let's get on with it. So Babel is a historical fiction meets dark academia setting, tropes, genres, subgenres, whatever you want to call it, and it was published in 2022. And it became famous right away. I remember hearing everyone talk about it. Everyone was reading it, commenting on it, winning awards. It was crazy famous. And I mean, it was also famous because of the polemic discussion that happened around it, because it was nominated for the Hugo Awards, which were being hosted in China. And then it got disqualified for the themes, and it was very, very dodgy business happening, and that kind of brought it even more fame. But either way, like, it's not like it mattered much, because before that, this book had been nominated for almost 10 awards, and it won almost all of them. So it really swept the competition. On Goodreads, this book has over 380,000 ratings. Again, just a demonstration of its fame. And the score it has is a 4.16 out of 5, which for a fantasy book, it's quite standard. It's above a 4, and I mean, not too high, which I would expect such a big book to have like 4.4 or something like that. But then again, because so many people read it, it's normal for the scores to go a bit lower than what the loudest people say, which is the book is amazing, the book is great. I mean, it's still pretty good, and especially considering this book has no adaptation, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was an adaptation in the works, or people planning out something to adapt this either to a TV show or to a movie, because I think it could be very well translated into that media. But let's move on to the housekeeping items, which in this case we only have one, which is the synopsis. I'm going to read the synopsis to you. If you don't want to hear anything about it because spoilers, or because you already know, just skip to the timestamp. Next one, it will jump right into the plot, which is the first category that we always talk about. Otherwise, stick around and you'll get a sense of what the book is about, so that we can all be on the same plane. Oxford, 1836. The city of dreaming spires. It is the center of all knowledge and progress in the world, and at its center is Babel, the Royal Institute of Translation, the tower from which all the power of the empire flows. Orphaned in Canton and brought to England by a mysterious guardian, Babel seemed like paradise to Robin Swift, until it became a prison. But can a student stand against an empire? And that is it for synopsis. Quite short, doesn't reveal much, just the essential. And since we don't have any scores to go through, let's just jump into the category, starting with plot. So in this novel, we follow Robin, which is our main POV, the character spoken about in the synopsis, who is a kid taken from Canton and brought to England to become a scholar. I think this character is the main POV, he is the protagonist, and it had to be to tell the story that R.F. Kuang wanted to tell. The plot is quite linear for the most of it. I mean, kind of what you expect from a dark academy subgenre type of story. And of course, it's still mixed with a historical fiction, because it is supposed to be set in Oxford in the 19th century. Later on, I'd say more or less the third part of the book, things take a turn for the unexpected, which was good. It was refreshing, especially because it was reaching a point where I was starting to feel a bit dull regarding the story. So taking that unexpected turn really revived the plot. But even then, I think there were still some parts that were a bit predictable. I mean, mostly how some characters would act. I could see how certain people would do certain actions and how that would create the repercussions that we needed for the story to continue. And this book also made me realize one thing about R.F. Kuang, which is she likes to write martyr characters, but I'll delve more into it in the character category. I just say this here on the plot category because once I caught up to this pattern, I couldn't unsee it, and it became even clearer how the character was acting to reach a similar goal as in the Poppy War trilogy. So that is a consequence. If you've read the Poppy War trilogy, you might see the similarities as well, which might drive a bit your enjoyment away. Otherwise, if this is your first R.F. Kuang novel, then you might be surprised by the outcomes. But then when you read the Poppy War, you might see the pattern. Overall, I still enjoyed the plot of this book, and that's maybe because I like the martyr trope a bit, but yeah, so this category is a 4 out of 5. Now let's talk about characters, and for our protagonist, Robin feels, like we say in Portugal, a bit of bread without salt. He's kind of bland, mostly painted as a coward, or at least someone who just watches things from the side and doesn't really take action to do things. And I mean, this might be on purpose. R.F. Kuang might have done Robin this way so that he can develop throughout the story to reach the point in the end that he needs to reach. But the truth is, it doesn't make a great protagonist. I thought the rest of his friends were all a lot more interesting because they had different facets, they were more proactive on things, and I think the ways they reacted to the world or the turmoil that would be created around them would be a lot more interesting than just seeing Robin by himself working through the world. And I think one of the best characters that was created for this book was Robin's mentor, because the duality and the theme that that character carried was very well done. I don't think he was a good character, but I think he was a well-made character, if that makes sense. I think having that perfect mixture of what it was supposed to be, a scholar, really nice and chivalrous man, while at the same time being bigoted or racist and sometimes just purely cruel, was, I think, a good duality to show how people might seem really nice, but they might have this other side. And of course, many other side characters I think had several different levels of achievements. So overall for this category, I'm giving it a 4 too, but only because I feel like Robin should have been developed a bit better and tweaked just a tiny bit to make the story more engaging. Halfway through our categories is world building, so let's get on with it. So this story is set in Oxford, 19th century, kind of like a parallel world to ours, well, where engraving silver kind of gives powers. So that is pretty much the magic system. I thought this magic system was well done in the sense that it was creative, it was original, and it was interesting. And on top of that, I think R.F. Kuang used it very well to make the plot move forward. However, I do think that the integration of the magic system into the world was a bit clunky. And this is because I feel like if this type of magic really existed, the world would have become vastly different. It would have developed in very different directions, and that's not really what we have in this world. We basically have a repetition of our world with silver, the magic system, just replacing things here and there very slightly. And I feel like that is the difference between integrating your magic system with the world or not. We have this silver magic system that I can compare, for example, with Elemency or Ferukemi of the Mistborn trilogy, and you can see the difference between fully integrating a magic system into the world, where the people, especially in the second Mistborn trilogy, where you see that the world has used that magic to develop a completely different society, which still has similarities to ours. You can pinpoint those similarities, but it's still its own unique thing. Whereas this one is pretty much a repetition of Oxford, where some details have that magic system. So what I can say, briefly summarizing this, is the silver magic system in itself is a good magic system. Its integration in the world, not so much. And then of course we have the building of the world itself, which is pretty much Oxford. I don't know much about Oxford. I mean, I've seen images and on movies and everything, so it seemed fairly vivid. The description seemed quite well done, and I think R.F. Kuang was able to provide the right atmosphere for this book. So for me, this category is also a 4. However, I'm gonna give it a low 4 because the magic system truly should have been a bigger driver of change in this world. And now writing style, which is a long and complicated category to talk about. I mean, not in the technical parts, because I think R.F. Kuang's prose and pacing still are brilliant and they're very well done. Because like I mentioned in the plot category, when the plot needed to change because it was starting to feel dull, R.F. Kuang turned it to the side and made it go in a different direction that was unexpected, and that triggered a lot more action moments and a lot more tension. And I think the work done to understand languages, together with the fact that this book is all about translation and languages, was done brilliantly, and you could see that R.F. Kuang was choosing very carefully which words to use in what context. But now, what about the messages that this book wants to send? I mean, I think it's pretty obvious what messages R.F. Kuang wanted to send with this book. I don't think you need a doctorate to understand it. However, I did feel sometimes that R.F. Kuang was almost hitting with a sledgehammer some issues over and over again after we had understood them. Hold your keyboards, I'll explain properly what I mean by this. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed the themes that were explored in this book. I discussed them with friends so much while I was reading them, even after I finished reading. I think they are very confronting, they are very eye-opening, which they should be, because these subjects brought here in this book are subjects that need to be talked about and that need to actually be shown to everyone, and so that people really see how things were and how things still are in some parts of this world. However, like I said, I think R.F. Kuang was just hammering specific subjects about this, not the whole messaging, but just specific parts over and over and over again, which I think kind of has the opposite effect of what she wants. And by hammering over and over, it seems like it's more of a sermon and you're being told off, which, I mean, I guess that a lot of these subjects people do need to be told off, but the people that actually need to be told off by reading this, I think they will just be alienated and just will be less or more hesitant to read and listen. And I mean, by showing in a blanket way that every single British person was the same in regards to racism, also kind of showed how that is wrong to assume, because in the end, no one is the same. No one just agrees blankly with everything, just like everyone else in a certain country. But I mean, I could go on and on about this. This is a whole subject of itself. And like I said, I discussed it plenty with my friends, but this is probably not the best platform to do. So I'll just say that this category is a 4 for me, but I consider this a high 4 because the themes were very well explored. And I mean, if it wasn't a good book, I wouldn't be talking so much about it with friends and with family and with just random people that read books. So enjoyment is our last category, and what we can say about it, well, as a scholar myself and an adorer of the dark academy trope, I truly enjoyed this book while I was reading. And especially at the start, because of the whole setting, the magic system, everything was very exciting and it felt like I was learning new things as I was reading. But the blunt force that R.F. Kuang was using to send a specific message kind of started bothering me as it started happening more and more. And I think the difference of sending the message, it can be seen very well with Terry Pratchett. For example, the book that I just reviewed, Equal Rights, and the messages sent by R.F. Kuang in this book. Okay, that they are very different messages, but I do think Terry Pratchett is able to convey the message without seeming that he is preaching or giving us a sermon. I think Terry Pratchett just gives you a situation and then kind of makes you think, is this wrong or is this right? And eventually, through the interactions with the characters, you kind of understand that it is wrong or right. Whereas R.F. Kuang is telling you right off the start, this is wrong. And so it doesn't really give you a chance to think about it and understand yourself, conclude yourself, oh, actually, this type of behavior is actually very wrong from the start. So it's that difference, and I do prefer Terry Pratchett's. So basically, for this category, I'm also giving it a 4 out of 5. But if I had to rank it based on all that I learned and the start of this book, it would have been a 5. And so that leads us to the end of this review. Just as a refresher, we have 4 for plot, 4 for characters, 4 minus for world building, 4 plus for writing style, and 4 for enjoyment, which gives us a final score of 4 out of 5. Okay, with the minuses and the pluses, but you understand that overall is just a 4. I thought that this book was good. It could have been better, definitely. At the same time, it could have been a lot worse, which if this could have been handled very wrongly, I don't think R.F. Kuang did that. I think she did it quite well. Did it deserve all those awards? I don't really think so. I think it's an original idea. It addresses really good themes, but again, the execution could have been slightly better. Still, I've recommended this book a couple of times already, and I think if you like the dark academia trope, and if you like something that is historical fiction as well, set in Oxford, this could be a really good book for you. Of course, just when you're reading it, don't get angry about the blanket statements, but at the same time, I do think that a lot of people should read this book. And I mean, I'm curious to read the next R.F. Kuang book. I really hope she doesn't do a martyr trope again, because it is starting to get a bit old. So let me know, is the new book Catabasis, I think that's the new book she's releasing, or any other books that she has written, or short stories, tell me, do they have many martyrs or not? Comment down below. And if you're new, don't forget, subscribe, like the content, and you shall be seeing me on Thursdays and Sundays, okay? See you soon.